Championship we've hosted here. The last time I was on property was in 2019 for the KitchenAid Senior PGA Championship. So I haven't been able to see the redo, but drove out yesterday afternoon, saw a little bit of the golf course. It looks absolutely fantastic. The club's always been really supportive. We've got a couple of people that we'd like to thank: Jason Ballard, who's the PGA professional here, and Chad Ellis, who's the GM here. They've been really instrumental in helping us succeed with our PGA Championship.
Very good. John, as usual, the PGA of America, one of the strongest fields in golf, but uniquely our own with a fine twist.
Yeah, every year we have 20 PGA professionals that qualify for this. This is the first year we have the Corebridge Financial PGA team. 11 of those individuals are playing for the very first time. You know, when I played, it was an event I always tried to qualify for, and unfortunately I was never quite good enough to make it here. But we've got 20 really good PGA professionals here this week, led by Braden Shattuck, who won a few weeks ago at Twin Warriors in New Mexico. We've got one New Yorker, Chris Sager, from Red Hook, New York. So really excited to see how they perform. Usually we get a few of them to make the cut, and I think we've got some quality players here this week.
Thanks very much, John. Seth, can you tell us about a very special investment the PGA of America is making right here in the Rochester community?
Yeah. First of all, thanks everybody for coming. It's great to see everybody. Appreciate all your support, not only this week, but all year. A couple of years ago, we decided that we wanted to really leave a legacy everywhere we go. We kind of come in and have a great party, and then we leave. And we thought we should leave something to the community to thank them for being so gracious and hospitable to us. So we use our Place to Play, a pillar on our foundation called A Place to Play, which is the idea of restoring public golf, in municipal form or other ways. If we create all these new golfers and there's no place to play, we've sort of defeated the purpose. And so we work with the local community to come up with something. And in this case, we're going to make a $250,000 donation to the Genesee Valley Golf Course. And we're going to build a practice facility there, short game facility. It'll be welcoming and inviting to all, and then run out sort of all our programming through there. And so we want to thank Western New York and Tori Shiro, who is our executive director. Tim Freeze is our district director in the Western New York. Kenny Sims, who runs our foundation, and Adam Bello, who's the county executor, for all their help in getting this done. We're excited to do that. And look, we are all about growing the game everywhere we go, and every day that if we can make 28,000 lives better, we can make millions of lives better through the game. And if you think about where the game is right now, it's never been in better shape. Like, it continues to grow. We thought we'd see a downturn post-COVID. It really is leveled off. It's over 41 million players now. That's on course and off course. The off course and how. So many ways to consume the game now that's terrific. And the way that it's growing is really terrific as well, which is every cohort, whether that's juniors, first-timers, avids, are growing. And the two fastest growing cohorts within that are women or girls. We're up to about now the new juniors is almost 40% girls that are playing, which is really exciting, and it's almost 30% kids of color. And so it's growing not only in an absolute way, but it's growing in all the interesting ways that we hope it would. I think for the first time, we can really think that golf is cool, right, as opposed to just, interesting, if you will. And I'll give you one last stat before I give up the mic, and that is that if you can think about what percentage of golfers today are under the age of 35, and the number is 48%. And I would reckon to say that it was 75% over 50 not so long ago. So that's, when we think about where the growth is coming from, that's the most exciting stat that I've seen in a long time about the growth of the game.
Thanks very much, Seth. Kerry Haigh, you are back here at Oak Hill for your third PGA Championship, but your first one in May. Let's not mention the two senior PGAs and a Ryder Cup that you have in your back pocket as well. But can you tell us a little bit about what the course is looking like this week and maybe what you think the players are expecting?
Sure. Thanks, Julius, and good morning. Yeah, it's wonderful to return to Oak Hill, treasure of a golf course, and the work that Andrew Green, who I think one or two of the players have spoken about, the redesign, the transformation of the course is, I personally really think the world of, and I think it's provided a lot more variety for the golf course, more hole locations, deeper, tougher bunkering, new tees, roll-offs around the greens, and less trees. And that combination has certainly made it a visually spectacular golf course. Not that it wasn't before, but it's a great golf course. And then tie that together with one of the best superintendents in the country, Jeff Corcoran, and his entire team. As you can see, what he has presented is unbelievable. The playing surfaces, I think, are second to none. The putting greens are beautiful. The rough is consistent. And the fairways are magnificent. And the bunkers are great. So, but all that couldn't have happened without the club and the membership, the board, the executives committee, and the members of Oak Hill who have not played the East Golf Course this year. So the 6 weeks of spring that they've had, they haven't played a round of golf. And those factors produce what we see out there is a truly great golf course. And I can't wait for the best players in the world to show how great it is and how good they are.
Kerry, I noticed you have a TV or two in your trailer. Is one of them tuned into the Weather Channel? And do you have any thoughts about what we're expecting this week?
Yeah, well, May in Rochester, May whenever the championship is, I think appears as though it will bring some more variety to the weather than we used to have when we played in August. So there is a possibility of a frost again on Thursday morning. We had a frost Tuesday morning. We had a couple of frosts last week. I may delay the start. Hopefully it won't. But if it does, we'll adapt. The wind right now, we've got different direction winds, northeast, I think, day one, and warming up. Chance of rain on Saturday and hopefully clear on Sunday. And that's sort of the fun of golf. It's an outdoor game, and we can't wait to see what Mother Nature brings as well.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have a question, please raise your hand. We'll try to get to you in an orderly fashion. We'll be with you now for the next 3 hours. Microphone number 12, please.
Question for Kerry about the banks leading down to the roll-offs. What was the decision behind, or what went into the decision to leave that as like a first/intermediate cut of rough as opposed to either shaving it down or just leaving it as rough?
You're referring to hole 15?
15 and 14,
yeah. Yeah. That was the architect's design. We did not get involved with Andrew's design of it, but certainly supportive of it. And certainly it's a pretty steep slope. I think growing bent grass on that slope would be pretty tough at the height of the down in the bottom there. But no, it's fun. It adds a different dimension to how you play your approach there.
Microphone 5, please.
For whoever would like to take it, you've had some time now to review the proposed model local rule on distance. Do you have a thought on whether the PGA Championship would adopt it as proposed?
Jeff, well, as we know, the model local rule has been proposed. It's a notice period right now, and we and others can make comments about it. So I think it's too early to speculate what we would do, in that it wouldn't even come into effect until 2026. So we're not rushing to make a decision until we know what actually is going to take place.
The comment period is up or in August. Will you be making a comment?
We're encouraging anyone. I think the
Yes.
USGA and the RNA are encouraging everyone to make comments. Yes.
We've commented all along, Jeff, and we will continue to comment. And I would just say, look, it's it's not an us against them sort of thing. I mean, this is very interactive, and the ruling bodies have been great about reaching out and having conversations and listening. And we're glad they've left the recreational game alone, because we think now's not a time to make it harder or less fun for while we're finally growing in the way that we want to grow. we're struggling with bifurcation like a lot of folks are, and in the sense of, we think that's an integral part of the game, that we can all test ourselves against others. And frankly, where does it stop and start? And how, police it, and our 28,000 would be in a position of being the policeman kind of on that, which we struggle with a little bit as well. So, but, again, it will be, I think, a very interactive, and we're as always going to work with our partners in the game and figure out what's in the best interest of the game. And that's how we think about it, right? Like we do this once a week, but every day we're out there, trying to make the game better, and therefore our true north is always going to be what's in the best interest of the overall game, and that's where we come from.
Front row on 2, please.
For Kerry, how much are you able to borrow from the setups of the past here, or do you approach it as almost a brand new golf course?
Yeah, I think every time we go to a championship, we try and look at it with fresh eyes and see how we can better challenge and test the best players in the world. And certainly the redesign has allowed for a lot more thought in that process, as things I said, with the roll-offs, more hole locations, more tee options, all of which will hopefully make it more interesting, not only for the players, the spectators, and everyone.
And for all three, what are your hopes for the Corbridge team that comes here? It's a high task to come here and play against the world's best on such a tough test. What are your hopes for their experiences this week?
Well, I'll answer it as someone who really wanted to be here. We hope they perform at their top level. At Bethpage in 2019, we had 3 players make the cut, which was fantastic. We hope every year one of our players stands out. We've got a couple of them that have had pretty decent success. So, Ben Kern played beautifully at Belle Reve. No reason why he can't do the same here. So there are some players that are in that field that definitely have the game to succeed, and we hope they do.
Yeah, I don't think they're here just to be here. I mean, it's great to be here, but now once they're here, they want to play, right? And John said they're quality players. Bob Sowers, in our senior a couple of years ago, top 5'd it, right? And so, and at Kiowa, we had a bunch of folks that were, semi in the mix at one point. So, they're amazing folks that work for a living and then play for a living, and they're here to compete. So again, I hope they have a great showing. But it's as John says, it's an accomplishment to get here, but they're not thinking that way. They're ready.
Over here on mic 9, please.
For Seth, being on the governing board of the OWGR is usually a musty ceremonial position, and now you hold the future of professional golf in your hands. Are you enjoying this responsibility, or is it a little too much pressure?
Well, I'm just one board member, and I've lived through 9/11 and a financial crisis or two, and so yeah, no, I think we can handle it.
You had some critical things to say about LIV recently, but isn't your role to be sort of an independent, neutral arbiter here?
Yeah, and that's, I appreciate you asking, because I think there's been more play which has kind of gotten out of context. What we're about this week is having it be, the greatest field in golf. We said that's what we wanted to do, and that's what we've done. Everybody who's here this week is our invited guest, and we're happy to have them, and we're all going to treat them the same. A lot of these folks are people I've known for a long time that are friends that I still talk to. So none of it is about that. It's about being, as I said before, having the true north of what's in the best interest of the game. And so I've been very consistent and reflecting ours, which is we don't think division is in the best interest of the game. And then when asked, what do I think? As a former businessman who looks at things, like I think disruption is a good thing. I think good things have happened from that. Certainly the players are better off in a lot of ways from what it was. I think having more the fans deal with get to see more of the great players together more often is a good thing. I think there's more interest in the game, frankly, as a result of all this disruption. But when asked, I struggle, and I have since the beginning, even before the beginning, with understanding, how it's a sustainable business model. And I, when asked, Alan, I tend to try to say what I believe, and that's not, that's not being a neutral body. I think being a neutral body is always acting in the best interest of the game, and that's what we'll always do, and that's what I'll always do.
Just one last thing on that point. As a board member, it seems like you guys are really committed to this timeline for review. But the 12 months was often because these are developmental circuits that might not be able to sustain themselves. Clearly, LIV has resources to keep going. So why is the OWGR being so strident about maintaining that timeline?
That's a total mischaracterization. What I said and what I'll say now is there has been healthy back and forth. It has not been acrimonious. It's been, collegial back and forth of them making an application as other tours have done. We've responded. They've responded. The ball, from my understanding, is it's in their court from our last response at this point. But it is, it's a natural process. There is no magic to 12 months. It's just sort of all of these, I think, or certainly since I've been around, have taken more time than I think was assumed early on. And it's. So that's where it is. This is not an us versus them. I think the OWGR, if you take a step back, the whole point of it is to create a level playing field, a yardstick by which to measure the game. And our job is to measure tours, not players, but tours and how they perform on those tours to come up with that yardstick. And that's what we're all attempting to try to do. And we've been, I think, very responsive to them in terms of their requests, and they've been responsive to us. It isn't some battle.
19, 14, and won twice.
Question for Kerry. We saw a sign that may indicate there's some kind of internal OB situation on 6 and 7. I'm not quite clear on what that means. Is it something you could explain?
Yeah, in playing the 6th hole, the fairway on hole 7 is out of bounds. And that is the same rule we played at the KitchenAid Senior PGA Championship with the redesign, the trees that were no longer there. Sort of, if you go down that way, take the water out of play, which is the architectural design of the 6th hole.
Is the idea pace of play, or just, this is how the course is supposed to be played? What's the logic behind it?
A little bit of both, and safety.
Safety, yeah.
14, 1, and then 12.
Seth, this is primarily a question for you, but John and Kerry, please chime in if you want. This championship was always the one, when the schedule was changed to May, that was the most on the fence. Now that we've kind of seen how the plan has gone through and how successful this has been so far, can you assess how well it's gone, and how has that changed maybe your opinion on how likely it is to have a championship in the Northeast at a club like this going forward in May?
Yeah, well, I'll answer your last question first, which is how are we looking out there right now? The course is perfect. As Kerry said, look, it's an outdoor sport, and we're obviously going to go back after this championship. We haven't hit a ball yet, right? So we'll see how it all plays out, and then come back and think about it for ourselves and see what the club wants to do, and and other clubs. I don't. So, but to go back to your original question, we think we've added more courses than we've taken away by moving to May. We think it's better for the kind of ecosystem of the game to have the majors lined up in the way that they do. We think it's better for us in that, again, we have 28,000 out there every day growing the game, and a lot of them, this is the beginning of their season, right? So our team of 20, but what you'll see over the course of the weekend is, talking about growing the game. That's really what we do, right? And this is 1 week of a year to have our platform and talk about all the amazing things, how we're saving lives with PGA Hope and changing lives through, other reach things that we do and programs that every one of our folks is doing. So we think it's been wildly successful from our perspective and also from the game's perspective. We always, respect our partners in this as well, and that the tour now ends at Labor Day, and that was certainly something that they wanted to do. the Olympics, which can interrupt. We think this is better relative to that as well. So we think it's not to use another sport analogy, but it's been kind of a home run, right? In terms of for us, and again, it looks pretty good out there right now.
2 questions on 1, then we'll go to 12 and 7.
Kerry, can you talk about the criteria and process of the exemptions you gave this year, and will it be the same criteria and process going forward?
So the question was the criteria for entries into this year's PGA Championship.
Well, you gave people like Dustin Johnson, Paul Casey exemptions. Just trying to understand what criteria you use and how the process works, and will it be the same criteria and process in the following years?
Yeah, the criteria for the PGA Championship has been pretty much the same for 30 years. We added the Olympic winner this year. We added the federation rankings, the top 3 players from that. So I don't envision any change to the categories that are currently there. And we also have the opportunity to invite other players who are not in those exempt categories, which for 30 years we have done. As far back as Ernie Els when he was first playing. We remember inviting him as a very young professional. And so that's what that category is for, is to invite upcoming players, great players who are playing on other tours. So, yeah, no real change.
And is that process a process that goes just you, or is it a committee kind of review process?
Yeah, the process, we have a committee that meet and review the invitations. I do most of the homework and the background about the categories and the players who to be considered, but we have a committee that review and then ultimately approve.
Doug, did you have a question?
I did. He kind of asked it. I just didn't like the way he asked it, but it was kind of along the same lines. I mean, I was curious.
You've been dealing with that for a long time. It's not our fault.
Kerry and even Seth, feel free to weigh in. I was curious about what prompted you a spot for Paul Casey. Louis Oosthuizen, who's got a pretty decent record here as well, did not get an invite. I don't know how far they're separated in the world ranking. How you went through that process, the committee did, and secondly, assuming that that LIV might get ranking points, let's say in July, if a decision's made then, at that point they're going to be pretty far down the pecking order. Going forward, if so many are outside the top 100, how would you consider players from LIV for this field?
Yeah, there are 2 questions there, but I guess one at a time. The process for inviting players who are playing well enough and good enough, we will consider no matter what tours they're playing on, just as we do this year. Some LIV players were invited this year, some Japanese tour, Australian tour. So yeah, we look at all tours, all rankings, and all players' abilities. Paul Casey, a great player. He's certainly had some injuries. Played on the Ryder Cup, last played, and has played well in PGA Championships. And again, we review all those criteria for a number of players, and he was one of a number that were selected.
Microphone 12 and then 7.
Do you guys, following up on the question about northeastern venues, do you guys view this tournament, Wanamaker in 2026, Baltusrol in 25? I'm sorry if I forget.
29.
Do you guys view those tournaments as kind of tests to see how a northeastern PGA is going to work in May and for the future?
Based on what we've had the last, we've already had 3, I think, in the cooler climates. We have to change our agronomy plans with the host superintendent and the club, and in this case, adjust our building plan for the hospitality because of the snow or likelihood of snow during the winter. But so far, we've been delighted. The golf course conditioning has been probably better in May than August, dealing with the stress, the heat. And although it becomes a sort of a tight window right before third week in May, we are delighted with what we've seen at all of those venues.
Looks like our final question on mic 7.
Seth, I thought you were walking back some of your comments about LIV in the beginning. Then I thought you reiterated some of those other comments. So could you just clarify what exactly you felt was out of context?
I'm sorry.
What was said about LIV that was out of context?
I think some of the, if you look at the whole article, if you will, it was, look, I am proud of Masters because they returned civility to the game. That's how they dealt with it. That's how we want to deal with it. Again, and again, everybody's our invited guest, right? And so that's consistent, right? And that's, I'll say that today, and I'll greet the players when I see them, for sure. They were all invited to our dinner tonight. Past champions. It's we're treating them in the way that we would treat everybody else. So that's number one. Number two is, again, when asked about what do you think about the viability of it, I'm going to be honest in the same way that I was at Kiawah 3 years ago to say I'm not sure that it's a superior product, and I'm not sure that it's a sustainable business model, because I just nothing's changed my mind about either of those things, and that's not that's when asked I'm giving an opinion about what it is. I'm just one opinion, right? Like, I don't have any authority here, and as I said, we assembled the best field in golf. We're happy to have them all here. I think we were fair and balanced about how we did all that, and let's have a great week. Let's have the best week ever.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. And thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Look forward to being with you the rest of the week.
How you doing, Shep?